We're not going down to the Parramatta District Court number 5 today or yesterday, but the mainstream media have covered this for the first time since November 2016. Well, I've covered all the other hearings. The most important one that I did cover, I've taken the video down, but I may be going back to that video and what happened at the directions hearing, because that was, if I had to pick one hearing to be at, it was that one. That one was the most telling. It had the most, I guess, information that's pivotal as to how they're going to get their conviction, which is what they're going to do. And this is a screenshot from one of the mainstream media articles. I think it's from The Guardian. Now, here's how they're going to do it. Now, the biggest problem they got is that, look, it's 100% fake. Okay, it's a hoax. It happened, but it was just a staged actors running around. That's all it was. But they can still get a conviction without committing perjury. And here's how they're going to do it. Third paragraph from the bottom says, the defence barrister, who I'm sure isn't in on it, Mark, whatever his name is there, told the jurors many of the facts of the stabbing, which was off camera, would not be disputed owing to Khan admitting to the attack. Now, Khan is either a willing participant or he's had mental problems and they've just manipulated him and even given him drugs to help manipulate him. It doesn't matter whether he's willing or unwilling, but he is a part of this and he acted out a part. So let's just be clear on that this was a bunch of actors running around in Minto on that day in front of the cameras. So how do they get out of it? So that means that Greenhalgh doesn't have to give evidence. He doesn't have to stand there and say, I got stabbed. Doesn't need to do it. The defence has just accepted Khan's admissions, which he's admitted to because he's part of it. So that way, that part of the offence, the actual stabbing part, which is part of the terror offence, is they can get that across the line without anyone perjuring themselves. The defence has decided not to question Greenhalgh as to the stabbing. Did you really get stabbed, Mr. Greenhalgh? How did you get stabbed? I would have thought that he could have come under questioning just to clarify facts for the jurors, but you can see by that statement that they would not be disputed owing to Khan's admissions. So Greenhalgh doesn't have to testify. Now, Chong can actually testify because Khan, what we can see on camera, but we can't hear him say, Khan said Allahu Akbar. And all the prosecution needs to ask Chong is, did you hear him say Allahu Akbar? And without perjuring himself, because he did hear those words uttered, not in the context of an actual terror attack, just in the context of batch of actors running around. But that doesn't matter. He can say that honestly, without perjuring himself, yes, I heard him say it. And then Khan's admissions, I think, would be in there as well. I said Allahu Akbar. So that is how they're going to get a terror conviction without perjuring themselves with this. But it's the third paragraph from the bottom. That's the most important one. So they're definitely going to go for the conviction without perjuring themselves. Now, I initially thought they were going to run a defence of mental health and not even run this trial, just mentally unfit. But they're saying in this the defence is going to run it to try and get him a not guilty plea. But he's going to be guilty. But he's still not going to go to jail because they can... it's not either or with this. It's not one or the other. It's not he's guilty, he's going to jail. He's not guilty, but they're going to give him orders that he goes to a mental health. They can actually convict him and still send him to be jailed. His accommodation while he's serving his sentence is within a mental health facility. So they can still say that he is mentally capable enough to have committed the offence, but still mentally unwell enough that he can't serve his sentence in an actual jail. So that's, I think, what they're going to do. They're going to get a conviction, and then this judge is going to make orders. This has all been pre-organised. they're going to then give orders, this Judge Bellew, that this guy be remanded in a mental health institution. He can give orders under the Supreme Court. That's why it got moved, and why the prosecution wanted it moved from the local court to the Supreme Court for this mental health angle. So they're going to get their conviction and get the mental. They're going to have their cake and eat it too. Now, this draws me to, I looked at the legislation again, and if I was the defence, and if I was a fair income defence, I would actually call Malcolm Turnbull as a witness. So let's just have a quick look at the terror laws first. So there it is. What is a terrorist act? So a terrorist act is an act that is done with the intention to coerce or influence the public or the government. So the key word there is the intention. So why would I call Malcolm Turnbull as a witness? Well, let's just hear what Malcolm Turnbull's got to say.
But they also seek to frighten us, to cow us into abandoning our Australian way of life. They want to frighten Australians. They want to divide Australians. They want us to turn on each other. We will not let them succeed.
So there's our esteemed Prime Minister doing another one of his stirring terror speeches. But it's what he says at the very end there that's important. He says, they will not succeed. So if I was the defence lawyer, I would say to ask Mr. Turnbull, so do you agree you said that? They will not succeed? I'd say, has Australia ever been influenced or coerced into do anything by a terrorist? He'd say no. Say, will that ever happen based on what you've just said there? He will say no. As I said before, the key word in the legislation is intent, and there is a definition to have as a plan or purpose, which means that what you intend on doing must be at least possible. So we intend to go to Australia next year. Now they may or may not go, because they'd say we're going to Australia, but they intend to go. But it must be a possibility that they can go. And underneath it says, somehow I offended him, which wasn't what I intended. So you can intend to do something that may not actually come about. But when it's an impossibility, you cannot say, I can't plan or intend to fly to the moon. I just can't make that statement. It's not accurate. So that's it. And the Prime Minister clearly said that Australians will not be affected by terrorists. And he would say that under cross-examination, at which point the case gets thrown out. That's it. It's over. As it stands, with the Prime Minister making that statement, and worldwide, every time they say, oh, there's always politicians going, they will not defeat us, we're not going to change, which negates the intention, because it can never actually be accomplished. So it can never be an intention. So you might think, well, you could change that word from intended to attempted. They attempted to change, because if you attempt something, you don't know if it's possible or not in your own mind. Whereas intend, you must know that it's possible. So they don't know if it's possible when they're doing it. So they could maybe change the word to attempted. But they can't do that, because what they're doing with this terrorist legislation is they're prosecuting you on a state of mind. Whereas an attempted something, that's an action, not a state of mind. See, attempted murder means you must commit an action. You can intend it. There's no offence for intending to murder someone. There is only an offence for attempted murder, which means you performed an action. You've driven at them, or you've tried to stab them, or you shot them and missed them. So they can't use the word attempted. So this legislation, terror legislation, it's null and void worldwide for the very fact that every government says they will never ever defeat us, which means it's not possible for what they intend to happen. Therefore, there can be no intention. Does that make sense to everyone? It makes sense to me. All right, that's it.